Well, we're back. We're back. Welcome again to the Brinson Institute, and we're just so glad that you've taken some time out to join us. As usual, we are just excited about what God is doing and how God is blessing. And we have again our special guest from last time. We said we were going to do a part two. My good friend, brothers and sisters in the faith, in ministry, in the community, in whatever. Dr. Albert Locke and Dr. Ruth Locke. The Lockes, both of them, doctors, nurses, medical doctors, and all of those things. And we've been having a good time. And for those of you that are just joining us for the first time, wow, you need to go back into our program and find part one. This is part two of our conversation. And we've been talking about whatever this term is and what retirement is, what retirement means. So many times we hear people talk about it, we see people and we read about things, but I thought it would be good to bring on our show, especially Brinson Institute, two of our Institute fellows, one of which is moving toward this experience that he calls retirement, which is really not between us. It's just, he don't know, it's just not punching a clock, that's all. And then his mate, Dr. Ruth, who don't even know what that means, whatever that means, because she's self-employed and she's a free agent and she does all kinds of things from caretaking to all kinds of things. And so what does it mean to have a retired person at home who decides to sleep in late when normally he's going at 7 and now it's 10:30, 11 and he's asking for some orange juice, or she feels like maybe he might want an egg sandwich or whatever, and normally there ain't no eggs at that time of day anyway. So how do we live and function in our retirement? What is God saying to us in purpose and destiny? And so welcome again to our show, Dr. Al and Dr. Ruth.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm glad that you're back. We had a chance to just stay around the studio and do a part two. Talk about, Dr. Al and Dr. Ruth, jump in. Talk about now that you somehow within the last, it's been about, now that this show has aired, about 30 days now, 2 or 3 weeks that you retired. So what now? What now? What's passion? What's purpose? What's destiny? What do you see, or have you seen? Well, what you looking at? What is your aha? What have you not aha? But what's up?
Well, what's up? Well, on the first show, we talked about the changes you go through in retirement. So now I'm doing in my self-analysis and checking myself and this and that, and looking at my purpose and destiny, because my health is still strong, my mind is still sharp, full of all this experience and this and that. So, God didn't give that to you just to sit on your butt and pat yourself on the back. That's not what you got to do. He didn't bring you that far and, expose you to all that. So going into purpose and destiny. So I was talking to Dr. Brinson about, one of the things that I feel close to is this PTSD issue.
So talk to us about what that is, so they'll understand. Look at the camera and explain to us, what is PTSD?
Well, PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorders, and that's an umbrella term. Because what's going on with people in crisis, social, economic, financial, spiritual, religion, marital, it's crisis in living. And as we know, with our community, we have a lot of violence, and we have all that. We have all those crisis situations with an added layer of violence. It can be marital violence, a lot of it is street violence, bullying in the schools and all that, internet violence. So
church violence.
Church violence. I mean, it goes across the board. Nobody and nothing is immune. So, with my experience and everything, I was talking to Dr. Brinson, working in that arena, working to develop programs, to develop seminars, so we can kind of address it. Since I have this wealth of information, I want when we talk about passion. Well, I'm a veteran, so that is that's my foundation. That's my base, and I know that from that base, it can be applicable to the society at large. So that's where I'm at right now, and we're going to be working with how to develop that, how to get that off the ground, finding various venues so we can interject this program in, and try to bring some solutions to some of these problems out here.
Okay, Dr. Ruth.
Yes.
How you feel about that? Now, PTSD is traumatic, it's post-traumatic stress
Just
disorder.
experienced it.
But PTSD also affects us and our physical side as well. Talk to us. What? Give us a
We
nurse.
just experienced that when my father was killed in a motor vehicle accident, and that was very traumatic, and it was a bit of guilt that went along with that because I had encouraged my father to take the trip. And who would have thought he wasn't going to come back? Him and my mom. My mom came back, but not him. They said it was instant. So, you wasn't expecting that. So it was traumatic for me. And watching her go in and out of the depression side of that, with 60-something years lost of a mate, is very traumatic. So trying to counsel, trying to comfort, trying to support, not wanting to hear the story of the accident every day. And I finally found myself saying that Mom, I can't come in here and hear about the accident every day. I can't relive it every day. I can't do it, And I then feeling guilty about saying that. So it's traumatic in itself. But my focus right now is basically on our diet. I had just read this and saw this this essay on TV. This doctor was making a statement about the RNA strain that's being placed into our food industry now, into the crops. Not only are they GMO in it, now they're actually putting molecules, RNA, DNA, those are building factors for our body. All right, so, and they're targeted and have a specific enzyme that's targeted towards our community. So I began to grow my own food. So I got potato now. I got some carrots. And I got some kale, some spinach, some beans. Get that. I'm putting, and this is just a suggestion. If you don't have a big enough yard, get you a planter and plant your own herbs or whatever. I mean, it's theoretically it's helpful for you, and it's least expensive, or it saves us some money because herbs and those kind of things are expensive. So if we grow our own, not only are you helping yourself, you're saving money. So that has been my focus. I know
And let me say this. Ruth talked about counseling her mom, through her traumatic experience. Well, Ruth was going through this traumatic experience too. So I'm in the middle of counseling mom or supporting mom, and then counseling Ruth or supporting her so she gets through it, so she can help mom get through it. And then the other family members. So, the last year has been really trying. It was a heck of an experience because there was a lot of grief we had to get through. How do you talk to a person who have lost their mate of 60 years? That was a unique process. But I feel it's been over a year now. I feel that we turned the critical corner. Quite naturally, I've lost my parents, some time ago. So maybe that gave me a little insight that, you will turn a corner, but you have to give it time to grieve. Nobody has a set time to grieve, but you just be supportive and realize that we will turn this corner. And that's been a great experience, actually.
So one of the things that you brought up, I was invited a year ago to Jesse Brown. Mm-hmm. to a workshop as a clergy person, and they had the doctors there and different people from the community, the LCPC clinicians. And they were talking about PTSD and moral injury. And so when I listened to the presentation, I thought I would be an advocate, be adversarial, really. I got up and said, "Now, excuse me. You know what occurred to me?" I said, "You have PTSD, PTSD." They said, "Well, what are you talking about, Dr. Brinson?" I said, "PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and PTSD, present traumatic stress disorder." I said, "And some of y'all sitting here, you already stressed out because you thinking you got to go home to a knucklehead when you get off the job." And some people hate to even put the key in the door. And some of us presently, right now, we are in the midst of trauma drama. I said, you know, I need y'all to help me understand how this specific issue of PTSD to the veteran who comes back from the theater and goes into his family and friends and gets locked in as PTSD when they got PTSD too. Maybe from a different angle, but PTSD is talking to PTSD, and PTS victimization is counseling PTSD victims. And all of us is in this together. And everybody say, "So what you trying to say?" Well, I ain't trying to say nothing. I was pretty much saying it is what it is. When you suggested and said, you know, Dr. Al said, you know, I'm going through PTSD, Brinson. I'm taking these classes. I'm learning how to do PTSD. To come home, having taken those classes, dealing with those issues, then come home and look in the face of your beloved wife who is going through a PTSD stressor because of her mom, who is dealing with, as a caretaker, her mom with PTSD. And sisters and all 166 folk plus other folk in life PTSD. Isn't that something? But you know, so as we look at it, I just wanted you to see when we start talking about our mental, our soul and our spirit and our body, the mental, physical, psychological, social, theoretical, theological understanding of life and all of its challenges. How do you see yourselves flowing with purpose and destiny and moving and helping those that are challenged by life in some kind of way? Since your passion is working with PTSD.
Yes.
And that affects any and all persons.
Yeah.
You know,
Maybe from different modalities, but still it's there.
when you said what you said, post and present, it made me really think, we got to be careful with, yes, we can say PTSD, but we have to kind of look at the stressors, because even with PTSD, in order to deal with getting out of it, we have to find the stressors, the trigger mechanisms that's keeping us locked in. And like you said, post, yes, the past, but the past is also the present.
And however we celebrate our present has something to do with how we interpret future.
Right.
So purpose and destiny is all tied in.
It's tied in.
So with the behavior modifications of normal, pretend normal, build up, act out,
right,
and the triggers that go around that little circle that they talk about, what am I saying? So if we study PTSD and say, well, at this state I'm normal, but now there's certain triggers that's acting and I am in an act out state because I just acted out. No, I'm in the build up state. Then I go into the act out state. Then I go into the pretend normal, like everything is normal state. Then I go back to the build-up state. Then I go back to the act-out state. And then I go back to the pretend. But among that whole behavioral circle paradigm are triggers.
Mm-hmm. And those triggers can lead to depression.
Yes.
See, when we say PTSD, we said earlier that's an umbrella, but that's an umbrella over depression. It may not be chronic, but I'm in a state of depression, anxiety, hyperanxiety, that type of thing, confusion, irritability, hard to get along, relationship problems, sexual problems, it's a lot of that, and it's present. So when we talk about post-traumatic, yeah, the situation may have caused me and put me in this present situation of PTSD, but it's those triggers it's defining it.
And so
I might be in depression.
Right. So that's what I'm saying.
That.
So how do we deal with past trauma and present everyday trauma that continues, that ain't stopped? Because I'm constantly being traumatized by whether it's domestic violence or whatever. I'm in the middle of my trauma.
But you still have to recognize what is a trigger. Okay, you do have to recognize that.
Right.
And your experience in the emergency room, when you went through your traumatic stress, you thought you had gone and gotten over certain things, and when that patient died in your arms, you catching him and all that, and you start having night sweats, running in your sleep, moaning. It was really something.
Let me share that with the audience.
Yeah, look at that camera.
Let me share my PTSD moment.
It was more than a moment.
It was more than a moment. So I'm in the ER. I've been in the ER almost over 15 years. Everything's cool and everything. I'm still dealing with this. I had an incident in the military in which a guy hung himself. I'll just say he hung himself. So he was, at the time he was down in Louisiana, so he's hanging from the second story barracks balcony, and I got around there and I just heard it, so I'm trying to hold him up so he can stay alive, and I'm calling for help. But what happened, holding him up, I felt his life leave him. He died while I was holding him up, and that was a funny feeling, to feel life just leave out of a person's body and you're holding their body. So okay, all right, I'm 19, 20, that happened. Now, fast forward to an incident in the ER about a couple of years back. It was this elderly guy I was helping out of a wheelchair now. And I'm holding him, and then he just died on me. And I felt that same feeling of that life force leaving out of his body, and I had a flashback. And from that point on, I couldn't work in the ER no more because I started having anxiety attacks. In fact, I had to be treated for PTSD past that was affecting my present circumstances. I couldn't work in there no more because I was feeling anxious. And the ER, I excelled in the ER. But that was a turning point. There was that incident. Well, I got treated, and I learned about the triggers, and I learned about different things, what PTSD, and I'm glad I did go through all that, because that makes me even have a deeper understanding of the modalities that the government used to treat PTSD, and it made me understand what was triggering my anxiety. And I can say, it has worked. I'm much better in this and that. I really don't have that, and when I do have it, I know how to recognize it. So in saying that, that's one of the reasons why we're going to be working with Dr. Brinson and the Brinson Institute, and we want to develop programs, because if I went through not only the symptoms, but I also went through the cure, well, this is valuable stuff. So I want to be able to, okay, let's do it this way, and I have the material, and being a doctor, so I know how to research what I don't have. I know what direction I need to go to, to get to my research. But this is something valuable to understand the things that's keeping us in the state. And again, when we say PTSD, it's not so much traumatic, it's the depression that comes with it. It's the anxiety. It's the, anxiousness, irritability. It's relationship problems. It's, drugs, escapism.
And all the different things that we do to medicate the pain.
And how we try to medicate and we medicating something that we don't know what we're medicating against. I'm just not feeling good. But I don't understand. But I'm in a cycle in which I'm in a situation that's causing these triggers to come up, not knowing about the triggers. But when they do come up, what do? I give me a bottle, I give me a hit, I give me some joints, and whatever it is, I'm medicating to get back into the cycle.
Which is a Band-Aid.
Right, which is it's not doing no good. It's just suppressing how I feel. That's all it's doing.
So within this context, as people of purpose in the kingdom of God, as we look at, this is ministry. It's not pulpit ministry, but it's called marketplace ministry, in the marketplace of life. I was thinking about that as I look at the African American and our Hispanic communities, the crime and the killing. Even in the schools. Well, in the other neighborhoods, when there's shootouts and killings, the social workers come and they be there the next morning.
Traumatic counselors.
For counselors. Now, in our community, ain't nobody going to the schools. Nobody was on the block the next day. Nobody's on the block. And now that you say that, I remember in my freshman or sophomore year, me having that anxiety. Now that I remember, I grew up in the projects. It just dawned on me a minute ago. I thought about it once a time ago. I grew up in the projects, in the projects, and that Sunday it was a fight. And we know in this house, the woman, she get high and she'll beat a man down. She will beat a man down. We knew her. And Juanita, I think her name. And that house was always a fight going on in there. And in the projects, when there was a fight in the row house, everybody would run and stand around and hit a boom, boom, bam, bam, a big old knot in there. But this particular Sunday, we were supposed to be, we come home from church and we eat our dinner, and then we supposed to go lay in the bed for an hour or two because we could get ready to go to service at night. But we was in the window watching. And normally my dad, he's out of town. He was out of town because normally if he's there, they know he was a reverend. He was a reverend back in there. He would go down there. Here come the reverend. They would stop. They got into a big fight. And bam, 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 boom, boom, we heard pow, 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 pow.
Shooting.
And after a while, here come the ambulance and the fire. So I got out the house and I ran around there to see Juanita, whatever her name was. They were bringing her out the house on a stretcher. Blood was coming through her mouth and her nose. Her brother, as she had shot her to death. And she was laying on, and I stood right there as they brought her past out the house, dead. He killed her. With all of us hearing it. And she lived right there. Just the back, and I'm right here. So now, the next morning, I get up early, 6 o'clock in the morning, because I got to walk 4, 5, 6 blocks to go to get to Ashland to get the bus. I was traumatized. It was like I was afraid to leave the house, to walk, because I had to pass that house to go, and it took everything in me. I'm in 15 to 16. For about a month or two, I would feel this jumpy feeling every morning, getting up 4, 5, 6 o'clock and leaving that house in the early mornings when there are too many people on the block going to catch the bus. That feeling, that flashback, I could see her laying in front of me with whatever left was in her and the blood coming out. I was like, wow, bam. So that's what that's like. The anxiety, the flashback, I keep seeing it. After a while, it went away. I ain't thought no more about it. I really ain't thought no more about it until just here recently, we were talking about PTSD and death and the shooting and the killing, and it triggered something in me. And I can remember as if it was the day. Yeah. The exact day, the exact time.
But our community has been so inundated with it.
Violence.
It's just like You know, they walk around in their days. They go back to the regular routine. When my grandson was killed over there on 82nd and Cottage Grove, him and the little girl, I mean, the next day, streets was washed. Everybody was back on the street. I could not understand it. How could you? And as a matter of fact, I had called so I could try to find out where my grandson was. And they asked me, where was the shooting? Well, how many shootings has there been in that neighborhood?
3 or 4 days.
In that day. No, that day. There had been 6 shootings already in that day. So they were number 5 and 6.
So it's down to a number. So you get used to it, and the news, you hear it on. So I guess what I'm saying is, in certain neighborhoods, in certain communities, there is no support. Where do I put my head? Whose shoulder do I lean on? How do I cry? How do I process my pain? So I'm sad. We got about 5 minutes left. I say, how do I process? How do you understand, for you and Dr. Ruth, the modality of I see now that I'm retiring. My husband is refiring. This is what I'm doing. There's some things I see in our community and our families that we want to help people with, the whole concept of wellness and wholeness in their soul and their spirit and their minds to be whole and healthy.
The one thing that came out of that was the peace conference, the peace initiative that we brought and Rotary developed. And they even put that in part of the parade. So every year there's a peace conference where you get to get up there and question the politicians of and having counselors and those kinds of things to come around and counsel our children. You know, after these things have gone on, those are the things that we want to keep pushing for, to continue in our community, because our community is hurt and wounded.
Let me ask something real quick about that. You know, this violence, in a way, the politicians are allowing it because it keeps the community in a state of siege. It keeps people numb to the point of paralysis.
So
So I think, you don't see this violence on the north side. All this violence, 50 murders, these cops can't catch nobody, they got cameras all over the place. So I'm saying it's kind of allowed. I'm also saying this is part of the game plan to numb us down emotionally, so we become so complacent to everyday violence, we don't react no more. We don't even feel no more.
Well, is this a political problem, or is this a spiritual, social problem of the community who have left their God and have left the concept of spirituality and don't understand the moral entity of love? Well, where these children, where are their parents? We live in a whole nother level. Do we blame the politics? You can't hire enough policemen for a person who don't know how to deal with a conflict management. Well, you don't know. Our time is up. We got to go. I'm so sorry. You all just missed a good conversation. What will happen, and hopefully see the number on at the bottom of our screen. Give us a call so we can connect Dr. Locke, Dr. Al Lott, and Dr. Ruth to maybe come out to your church or to your ministry or to your group. They'll be so glad to come out and do a workshop or a seminar. As members of the Princeton Institute, we want to be able to serve our community. So call me. Say, I saw that show. I want them to come, and I will get in contact with you for them to be there. Until next time, make sure you know that hope is still alive.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.